Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Recently I did a talk about the most important recording projects ever. And one of the sets we talked about was that wonderful Charles Gerhardt RCA series of film scores. It's a great box, which I'm sure everybody owns by now. And one of you mentioned that some of the other things that he did that were not part of that original series have been reissued on Dutton Vocalion. That's the series. And here is one of them. I wanted to just mention it because I have it here and it is unbelievably marvelous. It's John Williams' Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind suites from the films, both prepared by the composer, or in the case of the Star Wars with a little bit of extra music and in order approved by the composer, and better performances than those by the composer. Actually, at the time that this was made, which was 1978, this was not, film score recordings is in concert form like this were not all that usual. I mean, there were lots of original soundtracks. I mean, millions of them, from the actual films, and releases were becoming much more sophisticated, original soundtrack recordings. But Star Wars was a particularly important recording, an important work in the history of film, because it marked the return after a long hiatus of the big symphonic golden age type of score full of sumptuous orchestration and lovely leitmotifs that underscore big swatches of the action. And it was, of course, the music that added so much to the film. That was even more true of Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which was in many respects based on a tone row, or partly a tone row, that was the people who were encountering the aliens were humming, and John Williams turned this thing into an amazing symphonic extravaganza. And the Close Encounters suite is 21 minutes of continuous music, including like the entire last sequence of the film. And it's an amazing thing. It's very similar in terms of its expansiveness to that amazing scene in the first Star Trek movie, which was otherwise a terrible movie, but by Jerry Goldsmith, where, they're flying through V'ger and all this stuff is happening. I mean, it was the music that made it. And it gave the composer really an opportunity to compose in large spans. And John Williams, who is every bit the composer first and film person second, really seized the opportunity to write a major statement in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And Charles Gerhardt says in here that it's one of his favorite works, and I don't blame him. It's an incredible achievement, really a tone poem, a 21-minute long tone poem, and it should be played as such. It really should. So the only other thing to be said is that the remastering, they were originally on RCA, is fabulous here on Dutton. It's an SACD remastering, if you have that and care. I don't especially. And it's the performances are, like I said, better than John Williams' own, or better. Back in those days, there were only a couple versions of these things. Now it's ubiquitous. And John Williams, of course, has conducted and recorded this stuff a bazillion times, but he's never going to surpass these performances. He just isn't, not sonically for sure, and not in terms of the verve and exuberance of the performance with the National Philharmonic. I mean, these are big scores. I just want to tell you what the orchestration is, because he lists it. That's so much fun. It's so cool. Or at least in the main, he lists it. It's 11 woodwinds, flutes, oboes, clarinets, bassoons, bass clarinets, English horns, piccolos, all that stuff. 8 horns, 4 trumpets, 3 trombones, 2 tubas, timpani, 3 percussion, 2 harps, piano celesta, 26 violins, 10 violas, 10 cellos, and 6 basses. That's for Star Wars. And E.T. is his other one. Close Encounters is just about as large. It's the brass is not the whole orchestration, but the brass has 6 horns, 4 trumpets, 5 trombones, 2 tubas, and also an organ and chorus. And Gerhardt says futuristic sounds are produced by imaginative use of the orchestra, especially the percussion. Yay! Rather than by electronic gadgetry. But one of the reasons that E.T. came to mind also is it was these 3 scores, Star Wars, E.T., and Close Encounters, that revived not only, great symphonic film scoring, but also the science fiction genre as a whole, really it was a wonderful time to go to the movies. And John Williams was one of the major voices in this film revival and the rediscovery of an art form. And these scores are just tremendous. So I really very, very strongly recommend this Dutton recording if you want to get it. Again, it's with Charles Gerhardt, the National Philharmonic. It's suites from Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Big, substantial piles of splendid symphonic film music. Really splendid. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.